I was lucky enough to live many years in Indonesia. My husband's Indonesian, and so I learned very quickly how to speak Indonesian. Our children were born and they're bilingual, and so this world of bilingualism opened up for me personally, as well as being in a multilingual environment. So it's been an important personal journey too. So it's a fact, it's the reality of our world, and especially in your region, where you can hear that not only do you have the importance of French, but you have a lot of different dialects too, don't you, in Arabic and so on. So that's a very rich linguistic world. But there's also, we talk about the rights to multilingualism, and a lot of the work in that area has concerned the way in which children have been encouraged to lose languages, and the worry that their mother tongue or home and family languages are at risk, because coming into schools where the language of instruction is one particular language, we're finding that in many schools, students come into the school with two languages, their home language and a bit of the other language of instruction, but they leave school with one language. So actually what's happening in some places is they're losing languages. So that's a risk. And then, of course, if they're not maintaining their home language, what happens is they lose that channel of communication with family and friends and their home background, the whole identity that goes along with language. So we talk a lot about the rights of language. Students have a right to their home language. They have a right also to learn another language. Language is a very powerful thing. We all know that speaking English opens doors. Speaking French opens doors. And we want our students to have that. So we're not saying they shouldn't have that, but why can't they have both, or all of those possibilities? And that's what we're trying to do, and I think that's what I hear you guys are interested in doing as well. So about the rights to language, and then the resource of language. And it's been great to read all the research from the neuroscience about how bilingual brain, and you're all going, oh, I knew that because my brain's already bilingual. So I knew that I'm doing that, but now it starts to make sense as to how and why your brains are working in that way. So we know that the bilingual brain has advantages. It's a faster brain. It is able to juggle the different needs of language and so on. And people used to say, oh, it's bad because students are switching languages mid-sentence. How many of you do that? Halfway through a sentence, you change to another language. Have you ever done that?
Word for it.
Yeah. We used to do that at home with my kids, and then I read this thing about code switching. It said, this is bad. You shouldn't be changing languages. You should be using one language and then using another language, because you can't mix them up. And I'm thinking, but it's so natural to mix up languages. It just comes out, and it's normal and natural. And then people started to discover, yes, it is normal and natural. And it's actually part of what we now know and call translanguaging. Have you heard this term, translanguaging? It's been a bit of a life changer in terms of language teaching and learning, and I think it's a very important term. We'll come back to it a bit later. So language as a resource, both to the brain, to relationships, and in your schools, it's a huge resource for communication, for international mindedness. Of course, we talk about the importance of being able to take the perspective of another person through language. That's a way into understanding differences among people and different ways of seeing things. So that's why we talk about it as a resource at your school level, in your communities, but also, of course, in countries and nations. We know that that's a really valuable resource for trade, for communities, for world peace. So that's the kind of background of why it's important to us in the IB. Then at a personal level, I'm just going to tell you a little story that to me kind of brought out some of the issues. Not actually these children, but I had two twins coming to my school. I was in the Netherlands and I had two children coming to school, new family arriving in school from Iran, and Dad spoke some English, Mum had no English at all, and the children had no English, no new ones coming in. And I was the EAL teacher there, and they, on admissions, we always have consultation with the language specialists so that we can see and understand a little bit about the family and their languages. So we went downstairs and I met some of the family, and Mum was in tears. She's tears, trying really hard to be brave, but she's very young and she's got these little twins and she'd been come, following her husband in his career, and she'd come over there, and she was finding it really difficult. And the twins were interesting because one of them was really happy and curious and jumping around and interested in everything, and the other one was very quiet and withdrawn and very suspicious of everybody and everything. And it took we talked to the family, and we talked to them about how important it is to maintain home languages, because the family was saying, yes, we should be speaking English now because the children are going to be learning in English, so we should speak English at home. And we said straight away, no, don't do that. We want you to maintain your multilingualism. We want you to keep speaking Farsi at home. Keep learning Farsi. That's important. That's the language of your family, your culture, your community. But also, where are you going in the future? You're not going to stay in the Netherlands forever. You're going to go back, to Iran, or you're going to go to another country. You have to think about where you want to go. You don't want to lose that language and then find later on it was really important to you. So we had a long talk about that, and Mum dried her tears and looked a little bit happier. So we moved on, and the children settled in. One of them learned English really quickly. Just jumped in, swam, learned English, very happy, very comfortable, uses Farsi, speak a little bit Farsi with people. And the other little boy took a long time. It took a long time to feel confident. And we had to use quite a lot of his home language. We had a teaching assistant in school. We were lucky we had teaching assistants who spoke Farsi. She would come in and talk with him and encourage him. And very soon he did start to feel more confident. So this story for me was very much about, we can make language policies and we can make decisions about language, and kids should do this and they should do that and families do this and that. But at the end of the day, everyone is different, even with twins. Every single one is different. Every single one deals differently with languages, and they perceive the world in different ways. So we have to unlock what it is that supports those students individually. And we can't kind of make a blanket decision about everybody. We have to, of course, have guidance and programs and policies. But at the end of the day, looking at them as individuals and how they learn, that personalising of learning is so important. And beyond that, not just the children, but of course the family, because it's a whole family that comes into your school. So now in the PYP we talk a lot about what we call the learning community. And our learning communities are our parents, all our staff. It's the places where we touch the other parts of the world, where our community are bus drivers, the shop down the road, all the parts of that community that our students come into contact with. And the family is also part of that. So we need to know the families, we need to know what their plans are. Why are they learning French in your school? Is it important to them? Does Dad speak French at home? Does Mum speak French? Is it a new language to them? Do they have associations with that language that are positive or negative? So we need to understand a little bit about families and why they're doing things. So those conversations are really important. And as we record languages and language development, we need to see the whole child. So I'm sure all of you, if I ask you, you will tell me a little bit about which language is your strongest. So for example, I'm quite fluent in speaking Indonesian, but my written Indonesian is very poor. Because I never write Indonesian. I speak to a lot of people, but I never write it. Yeah. So how about you guys? I mean, do you have a language? Are you equally strong in your languages? Do you have two languages that are equally strong? Or are you stronger in one and another? So who reads in two languages? The same level of reading. And can you write in the same level in two languages as well? No? So you,
Yes, maybe I speak French, but it's not as English as Arabic.
Yes.
I very good French.
Yes. And then if you had to write an academic paper?
In French?
In French? Be harder, yeah.
I can express myself in French somehow.
Because
in English, yes, it's easy. In Arabic, yes, it's easy. Sometimes I would like to write in English, as you mentioned before. Yeah, the ideas, it comes out so easily in English sometimes. Yeah, and sometimes, okay.
Yeah.
Up in French, to be frank, I cannot express
because
myself.
language, of course, is context specific, isn't it? If we're learning an academic language for academic purposes, we're going to write a paper, then that's going to be a different kind of language than going and making an appointment on the telephone. Yeah. So it's very context specific, but that's also for the students in the schools. Why are they learning French? What are they going to do? What do they need? And what are they going to risk? If they're learning three languages, what are the risks? Are they going to lose ability in one language because they're doing the other. You know, there's always a risk involved as well.
I think that I asked before.
Yeah.
This is my concern.
Yes. So that's where conversations come in. It's important to talk to parents, to talk with teachers about what is it these students are going to really need, what do they want, what do families want, and to look at the whole picture. You know. And then we can give good advice to parents about how much time to spend with the different languages and the ways with those languages. And of course, when they're this age, we don't necessarily know what they're going to do when they're 18. It's a long way ahead. But it doesn't hurt to start talking about it with families. And you, if you have children yourself, you've perhaps been through some of these hot questions and conversations yourself. Yeah. So, right, multilingual schools. So we want schools that are multilingual for lots of reasons, and we need to have conversations about it. We need to be sure of what it is we want. You know, in the past, there's a sort of history to multilingualism. And in the past, people used to always say, you should only work with one language, that's it. And if you start to try and use two languages, you're going to mix it up, you're going to get it all wrong. So then, things changed, and people started talking about additive bilingualism. Do you know, have you heard that term? So first of all, people used to call it like deficit bilingualism. It was bad to have two languages, you should only have one really strong language. Then people changed and said, no, two languages are good, but they sit side by side in the brain, so you shouldn't mix them up. That's what we talked about earlier. But now, there's talk about what we call dynamic multilingualism. Because we know, and you know, as you know, bilingual or multilingual people, that languages don't sit in your brain in separate compartments. They work together. So if you know what a verb is in French, you also know what a verb is in English. So these are things that your brain is doing for you. So dynamic multilingualism has come out of a lot of work in Wales, believe it or not, in the UK. The Welsh language almost disappeared. I don't know if you know about Welsh language. It's a very difficult language. It's completely different to English. But it almost died out completely in Wales. And then the government stepped in and said, no, we want to preserve this language. It's part of our history and our heritage. So for the Welsh people, they started to reintroduce it in schools and develop bilingual programs. So believe it or not, in the UK, we do have bilingual programs in Wales. And now the number of people speaking Welsh has increased a lot. And a lot of interesting research has come out from that about how people, you know, setting up new bilingual programs and how they work. And then this guy called Colin Baker, who's quite well known in bilingual, you may have heard of him. So he did a lot of work there. And then there's a woman called Ophelia Garcia, has done a lot of work in the US around how the dynamic multilingualism, how our brains work with languages and how to support multilingual learning in schools, particularly in schools in the US with Hispanic backgrounds. So this term translanguaging came along. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So what I'd like to talk about now, I want to hand over to you guys. I want you to tell me something. If you were at a multilingual school, if I go to visit you in your multilingual school, how will I know your school is multilingual? What would I see? What would I see? Yes.
You hear different languages, you see the boards have different worksheets that use the different languages, like in our school, the Arabic, the English, and French. Yeah. Each teacher has a board where we display the students' work as well as like the essential agreement to do. We have in English, we have in Arabic, we have in French.
Right, yeah. So your essential agreements at the beginning of the year, you do them in all languages?
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
We do that. So if we have visitors, sometimes they talk to them in different languages.
Okay, so the visitors
the French ambassador or British one or whoever comes to the school, so they can speak 2 or 3 languages.
Yeah.
It shows that.
So you'd see languages written around you?
Yes, sure.
Would we say that all those languages have equal balance in the school, or are some more important than others? What do we say?
More.
In terms of hours, teaching hours.
Yeah.
Might be.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
For the teaching hours, yes.
Teaching hours, yeah.
It depends on the school itself on its program. It's like in the ASG from grade, it's more focused on Arabic until grade 5.
Yeah.
So that they get their home.
As we have the Arabic and the English, they have the same classrooms.
Yes.
They have the same classes. French, it's a little bit less, okay, but it's firm. The French is up in our school, it's firm because it's a must.
Yeah. So you'll see languages, you'll hear languages. What about your like processes and systems in the school? How do you work with those languages? Where's this all written down? What guidance? If I'm a new teacher coming in, how do I know which one language policy? Language policy. Yeah. Any other things? Any other guidance that comes from teachers?
In our meetings, in our collaborative meetings, when we meet with the English coordinator, it's in English, the Arabic, we speak in Arabic, the French, we speak French,
okay,
even within the meetings.
And how about the collaborative planning? How do languages figure in your collaborative planning?
We have like people, usually most of our English teachers, they speak both languages, Arabic and English, so during collaborative planning, there's also like they're able to communicate with homeroom teachers easily.
Yes.
Even if we have co-teachers, we'll make sure if one of them is a native speaker, she's paired up with someone who speaks both Arabic and English. So like our PD sessions also, you know, we offer like translations, like we would have both people sitting next to each other. This way we try to facilitate that there is language access for everybody, whether a student or a teacher.
So the students coming into your school, do they all speak the same Arabic? Or do they have
Actually, the majority do, but we do have also foreigners.
Yes.
Like we've had a family joining from German. They spoke German.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so imagine learning English, Arabic, and they speak German. So
Yes.
you won't believe it, but the students really picked up the language.
Yes.
And there was some kind of support system within the classroom where all their friends were helping.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was really nice.
And then, so that's great. So you have some, you know, different language groups coming in. But I'm interested in we talked a little bit earlier about Arabic and how Arabic has different dialects
Yeah, I was
as
going
well.
to say,
So how does
we
that
had some
work?
students that came in that were from Iran.
Yeah.
And they, so we just kind of teach you, so you know how to kind of, because most dialects, like especially Jordanians, they really understand the Egyptian dialect.
Yes.
So that's easy. So you can understand, especially the Jordanian dialect is closest to the, let's say, the proper Arabic than the other Arabic countries. So the students tend to be able to understand it because it is.
Yeah, so similar enough.
Yeah.
And how about the written Arabic? Is that the same?
We use classical when it comes to
The
it.
standard writing.
Yes, that's
Okay.
classical Arabic.
Yeah.
Also, even if we are not a PYP school, okay, but we go with the same
You know-
thing. Yes, the science coordinator, the math coordinator also, they have to speak in English with the teachers, even if they are not language coordinators, okay, in the English, the French, they use the main language in the meetings, as she mentioned. And also we have multinationalities in our school, we have Chinese, Korean.
Oh, gee,
Yes, we have
foreign
nationalities.
Okay, so how do you manage those languages in your school?
They don't know English. Okay, maybe the Chinese one and the Korean. As she mentioned, we have co-teachers and they translate, and the little ones, they can catch the language so easily.
I never thought of Arabic dialects until I moved to Oman. When I realized that people around me don't really get all dialects.
Yes.
Like especially if it's from Gulf countries or Egypt or, you know,
Yes.
like my nieces now, for example, if they watch something Egyptian, they would understand only half of what they're saying.
Okay.
And this was really amazing. Like,
Yes,
you know, being also raised in a place where you meet people from different nationalities gets you more exposed to understanding their dialects.
Okay. Yes.
In Lebanon, almost all regardless of those teaching the foreign language and
Yes.
and give additional third language.
So you teach the content through both languages, yeah. Yeah. With Arabic as well, Arabic and all English.
No, all English. The English, maths, and science.
Yeah.
But you have the French Baccalaureate.
Yeah.
So some schools
So
they
they
have to
would
teach in French.
No, I mean the foreign language. So this school would teach French, math, and science in French.
As for the De La Salle Frere in Lebanon, we have
They teach
seven
us in
schools there.
French.
So some of them they go by French because they have the French Baccalaureate. Some of them they are.
Even if they follow the Lebanese curriculum,
Yes.
they do the math and science in the foreign language. Even the official exams, in the official exams, they do it in the foreign language, whether it's English or French.
So it all sounds like you've got all the answers. It's all easy. So you must find languages really easy every day in your schools. Or are there any? There must be some little challenges and tensions and difficulties. So we've talked about the positive side. So let's have a little bit look at some of the more, obviously it is very challenging because we want to look for, how we can balance the students' needs best. So I think what I'd like to do is, I'm going to ask you to work, kind of together in your pairs to think about. We talked a little bit about a multilingual school. What does it like? What does it look like? And how we can move ourselves forward in that journey. Because we know we're doing lots of really good things and we're doing them well, but there's always the kind of wanting to move forward, to improve, to change. So let's have a little bit look at that today and look at it a little bit in terms of the tensions you are experiencing as well. Because there always is, at a time is always, of course, a big tension, isn't it? How much time you spend doing things. Yes?
This has been going for long, I think, in the Middle East, that most schools are multilingual.
Yes.
Personally, I'm in the session to see how is this implemented in a PYP setting and what are the differences.
Yes.
So we have our programs, we teach the languages and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So, and we know that we have our pressures and we have the positive sides and so on. But how is it different?
Yes. Well, let's talk about that, yeah. So what I'm going to ask you to do, perhaps what we should do is mix people up so you're with someone from a different school or a different context. And I tell you what, why don't we split into two groups, one group of 4 and one group of 3. Would that work, do you think? And I'm going to ask you to think about multilingualism as a kind of continuum. You've got some schools perhaps, I don't know, well, I'm working this way, left to right because I'm in English, I know that you would work the other way. Imagining a school that is not doing very well, perhaps. You might not consider it, you're probably much further on than this. But what would you see in a school that isn't really addressing multilingualism very well? What would you see in a school that's kind of gone quite a long way along this journey? And what would you see in a school that's really doing this really well? It's a really multilingual school. What are they doing that makes it a good school in terms of multilingualism? Okay. So I'm going to ask you to take a paper and perhaps put 3 columns on your paper and try to look at what are the differences between schools that are not doing so well and ones that are doing okay and those that are doing really well. Draw on your own practice in your own schools, but also perhaps things you've read, heard, and so on. What would you see, what would you hear in schools that were working really well or not working really well? So can I split you into groups of 2 groups? So you're working with different schools or 3, yeah? So you mix up a little bit. Yeah, could I ask you to join these 2 over here? I know tables are not really very squeeze on the end, and then if you guys could sit together. I don't know if we can move the tables or not. Might be too difficult, but you're going to be okay. Just move the tables. And if you're going to join the schools, and you'll be coming from a little different angle on it, but it's quite interesting to see the other side of that. Are you okay then?
If we think first of a school is not doing so, I would think that language instruction is everyone, right?
البلايجراوند والمكان. طالب مثلا بيحكي لغة مش قادرة
So the multilingual school, bilingual plus additional. Here only bilingual.
She can express herself in English language.
But for the bilingual school is okay. You don't need to offer additional language.
أنا بحكي كمان
So higher class.
It's good to utilise it. Schools get together. By the way, if you do want to call yourself, it's absolutely fine.
Yes.
Whatever you want, but yeah, do a bit of translating, it's also
with a plan
And this is adjusted in the policy.
development
Support.
It's easier just with the one in the green and
And then the one in the middle. Yeah, I think this is the interesting one though, isn't it? You know, as to what it means when it's
It's not a living document.
so multilingual communication.
The documentation are our communication relations.
لا
Multilingual
of languages around the world. Yes,
bilingual without English language. We can think of a school that is bilingual but doesn't have any extra language, right?
أحيانا يعني في شيء ما قدرنا ندخله بس كل حاجة بالماث.
I would say open-mindedness towards languages.
POI إيش قصدك فيها؟ أحيانا كمان حسب
Does not mean students how
في محاور للPYP.
maybe they have a policy, but it's not a clear policy. A policy that is not a legal document. Yes. So we can
قصدي هل عم نحكي عن 4 لغات؟
bilingual plus When will your students يعني French عربي العربي لازم يرتبط
So in 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you to share your continuum, what you've come up with in terms of things in school. And think about, I've put some things on the board, but maybe there's some other things to think about, that maybe your discussions, which areas of the school languages are used in different ways and so on. Think about that as well.
حسنا صعب
Right, are we ready? We do some feedback. So I'm curious to know about what you've come up with. What might you see in a school that's not very multilingual? What kind of things would we see? Actually, perhaps what I'll do is ask each group to present what they've come up with. Yeah, would you like to go first, your group? Just tell us what you've got in your not very multilingual school and and then maybe in your.
Okay, so we said first of all that not a clear, in all the languages policy, and that minimum hours of teachers, language teachers teaching. So you don't, not equal, or almost equal, let's say. That we only speak the language in class, and outside might go back to like the mother tongue.
Yes.
Instead of everything else. And there's like no display, the displays might all be one language. That's what it is.
Okay. We also said that the teacher of the language speaks the language only inside the classroom setting.
Yeah.
So when the teacher is outside the classroom, even the teacher shifts back to the
Yes. So that's a good idea. So what about the very multilingual school? What would you see there?
Policies would be in 2 or 3 languages depending on the school. Books available in all languages. The exploration corner has, again, all languages. Books available in the classroom, the library, English, French, Arabic, the art school, for example. The whole community can speak to a student depending on her or his mother tongue, so at least they can be able to communicate. Assessments to cater to all students, so what they feel comfortable with, especially when it comes to the UI. Like, we're more important that they've gathered, that they've got the information rather than how they're presenting it or which language. Hear it, see it.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. There's a lot of good ideas there. And Ray, are you doing all of those things in your schools? Yeah. Did you get any ideas from that? Something you know that you're not doing?
Not really.
Not yet? Yeah. Hopefully we'll get some ideas soon. All right, and how about in your school? Would you like to share what you came up with your
Yeah, we
continuum?
said in a school that is not that multilingual, we would see that there's only one language of instruction, probably no language policies or vision when it comes to languages. Display one language, teachers speak one language. Parents also, they have no input in their children's development when it comes to language. All communications across, in, out are done in one language, and all resources are in one language. But when it comes to a school that is really a perfect school. Okay, you would see probably a language policy that is always updated and reviewed and that caters for the different students' needs. An inquiry-based approach used even in language studies. We would see maybe bilingual plus an additional language, and we were aiming actually at more than 3 if possible. Accept students from any country with a clear support plan on how to work with that student. You would see a multilingual display, multilingual communications. They allow students to express their learning in the language they prefer. Recognition of languages around the world. Multilingual staff. Yes. And resources, open-mindedness towards languages.
Great,
so,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And did anything come to mind then that you thought, maybe we could do a bit more on this one?
Yeah, now I'm thinking, like, why only Arabic, English, and French? Like,
great.
Yeah.
So you're going to bring more languages on board?
It's good to at least maybe when we're working within our units of inquiry and something that relates to language, like broaden the students' perspective about the other languages around us.
Yeah.
So we're like in the middle towards the right side. So we're thinking like we need to push it really more that way.
Yeah. So okay, so a couple of questions come to my mind, and that's about how do you manage the languages within the classroom in your schools? So your teachers are working with 2 or 3 languages in the classroom. So who makes decisions about choices of when languages are used and which language is used when? How do you decide that within your classes?
When it comes to English, we only have each class we teach an hour a day.
Yes.
So we kind of say, as an essential agreement, that they came up with themselves in English class, we will only speak in English.
Yes. Yeah.
To the English teachers, only in English. But then obviously there are some times where they've got a word in their head in Arabic, and they'll come and ask us,
What does it
this
mean?
word?
Yes.
Sometimes
Mean
I
in
have
English.
go to the other teacher.
French
Okay,
tries to do
yeah.
the same too.
Yeah.
Yes.
That they encourage that they only like it's our French hour, so let's just try to practice French and so on.
Yes.
When it comes to the unit of inquiry, I believe the homeroom teachers. Do you want to say about that, Dina? Yeah. Okay. All right.
أنا معلمة لما أكون عندي يونت أوف إنكولي وفي عندي بنت عندها هي لغة ثانية.
Yeah, sometimes when she has a student who's a native speaker from another country and she's doing her unit of inquiry,
إذا بدي أقيس أنا معرفتها.
she wants to assess the knowledge. عادي كملي أنا ما توقفي بقدر أترجم بنفس الوقت.
إذا بدي أقيس عندها المعرفة أنا بخليها تحكي
to assess her understanding. She would allow her to speak, in any language she prefers and write. Math is the same thing. If she wants to express her understanding, she can use English, for example, and the teacher will help her out.
That's great because you're clear on are you looking for content or are you looking for language? Because it's different, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
And students might need to be able to use different languages to access content or express their understanding of content.
Yeah.
And again, we try to be collaborative. Like in our next unit, we're kind of work together with the Arabic teachers. Like they're going to research about animals. They're going to research about English. So they can use both the information that they gathered in the Arabic unit of inquiry as well as the English to do, for example, our formative assessments or their summative assessments.
Great. So how do students know what they can and can't do with languages?
What they, sorry?
How do they know? When a student comes into your classes, or, obviously you're talking on behalf of other teachers who are not here, but when a student comes into your school and into your classrooms, how do they know what they can and can't do with their languages? So you're coming in with 3 languages, how do they know which one they can use where?
It's very clear. I mean, homeroom teaching sessions and Arabic sessions in our timetables. We have specific sessions for homeroom teaching because we don't have like 2 teachers in the same classroom, except in KGs.
Yes.
Preschool classes have 2 teachers. One of them is responsible for the language of instruction, whether it's English or French, and the other one is responsible for English plus Arabic. Okay,
Yes.
but in the elementary classes, it's different. We have homeroom sessions and Arabic sessions. So when the homeroom teacher is with the students, they don't actually use the Arabic language with her, whether they're learning sciences, units of inquiry, or language and math. Okay.
Yes.
When the Arabic teacher is with them, they use their mother tongue.
Yes.
Look.
who-
And we
who-
have students
yeah.
in the American system. These students they come from abroad, so they don't have their like Arabic language, advanced Arabic. So we pull them. We give them Arabic sessions that support them in learning Arabic, and the units of inquiry they stay with their peers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about the conversations you have with students about where and when and how they use languages. Because one of the strategies I've come across is where you can draw up language agreements, with your class, and you can display it and say, in these situations when we use these different languages and why. So that's what my question, because you make your essential agreements. Do you include agreements about languages? They can have that as a separate agreement.
And they know the information.
It's within the essential agreements.
Yeah, and use Arabic. Okay, then the teacher she's gonna translate it into English, right or wrong?
Although there are certain
I think you will have to be
You know,
open.
I have a student this year. Her name is Sarah. She's her mother is Romanian and her father is Palestinian. Yes. When it comes to Arabic language, she knows that she has to write in Arabic and speak in Arabic.
Yes.
And the unit of inquiry or math or I can speak English now and I can.
You don't need translation, by the way. You can express yourself very well.
I'm trying.
Very nicely too. Yeah. Yeah, so that's interesting. So you're doing a lot of working with students to give them agency in languages and so on, and that sounds wonderful. Yeah. So the other thing is, now if I come to your school and I come in I enter your school. What do I see when I come into the school at the very beginning in terms of languages? So what's the message I get when I come into your school about languages? Think about entering the door as a new family or a visitor. What do I see that tells me about your languages and the way you feel about languages?
Yeah. You kind of see that we're open. You walk into the primary section, on the right-hand side we have the...
Starting from our program of inquiry,
it's
bilingual.
The English and Arabic, not French though.
English
And
and
then on
Arabic.
the left-hand side, there's they can ask whatever questions they have, whether in French, English, or they just write it on the markers.
Yeah.
And then you have the boards, and again, you see it in English, you see it in Arabic, you see it in French,
Great.
depending on what unit we just did. So
Yeah.
Walk
Sounds
into the
amazing.
library, you'll find also resources and books, like French stories, English stories, Arabic stories, and we're working on increasing that. What else?
Yeah. So, because I think that's the moment, isn't it, where as you walk into a school, it's the moment when you get a real feel for the character of a school, and languages are so much part of that character, aren't they? So about how that you display that, and also about sharing the information about the makeup of languages in your school, sharing, where people come from and what they're bringing with them into the school. There is also nice for communities.
Actually, you would learn about a different kind of language in our school the minute you walk in, which is the language of art. Because students' work is used all over the school.
Yes.
Like, we'll wait until you really visit, but it's very, very clear, that art is also considered highly, as a language of expression.
So let's talk a little bit then about some of the, we mentioned earlier, talk a little bit about the tensions. What are the difficulties in juggling these languages, and what are your concerns and worries as teachers and school leadership? What is it that you've got a lot going on, you've got really vibrant programs and a lot of attention to languages, you're very considerate of them, but that's not without difficulties as well. So perhaps just talk with the people next to you about some of the challenges that brings and some of the difficulties and perhaps the worries you have about working with so many languages and bringing them forward. Yes. So just talk with a partner or two about that, and then we'll share some of those at the end and talk about how we can address them. Lovely. So there's always tensions, aren't there, and always obstacles to all the ideal the things that we want to achieve with our schools. So I'm interested to know what you think are some of the areas of tension and some of the difficulties that you have. So how about in your school? What are some of the things that you grapple with each year? Oh yes, yes.
So even though she was a bright child and she had a lot of ideas, I could never get to her. I could never, no matter how much I tried, like, okay, try to explain it this way, let's try a different teaching style, let's anything. But then she went up to grade 2 and we have a teacher who actually speaks Russian, Melody.
Yeah.
And she spoke to her once in like distance, a little bit in Russian, and she made such a big difference in her, like, when it came to languages, when it came to her academic progress in school, and to me that was frustrating. Like, oh, I
You have to have multinationalities.
To have that connection.
Yeah.
So that's a tension, an obstacle that we face when it does come to other languages.
Yes.
Sometimes they just want to see like, oh, we have something in common.
Yes.
Otherwise they see like, oh, foreigner, I don't understand what you're saying.
Yes. And sometimes for students that becomes an obstacle they just cannot get over.
They close down.
And they close down.
Okay.
So I had some Russian student come in. We were lucky; we had 2 come in. So we had different classes, but I was working with them together, and we used to communicate through Google Translate. So they would type something into the iPad and show me, and I would type something back in Russian to them, and then we had this conversation going. And it wasn't long until they were able to start to communicate. But just being able to express themselves through that Google Translate made a huge difference. So something about opening that door to communication. It's more than just language, isn't it? It's about being open to them and welcoming them in.
Seeing a connection, like, oh, I can speak to her, I can.
Yes, even if it was through a tool. But of course, Google Translate now has an oral.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is, of course, it's very inaccurate. We know Google Translate is very inaccurate. You have to be very careful. But it can be a really useful tool, especially with the
I use it a lot.
But that's difficult, isn't it? When you have a student coming in on their own, how you access them and how you open up that door to them.
You just have to have a connection with them, and then it's amazing what difference it makes.
And just, of course, you can access pictures and text and the internet to share with them, stories and so on, and that also, that valuing of their language and so on makes a huge difference.
Lifesavers.
And when we talk about I mentioned the word translanguaging earlier, and that's one of the areas where that's very powerful. So you can't communicate with a student very well, but you can enable them to, we talked about content earlier, about accessing content, you can have them work in a home language. And you can't understand it, but they can express it to you in some way or another,
You can work around it, like I said before, like when a teacher would come in and assess the presentation or oral skills for an assessment.
Yeah, and I had I remember having a student once who we were writing, I think it was a story, and she managed to write kind of in English like a couple of lines. And then we said, well, now it's time to work in your, your home language. And so she went off and she came out with this huge page. And I took her to the French teacher and the French teacher went, this is amazing. This student is so talented in French. She has such wonderful expression. And we went back at the little 3 lines of awkward English that she'd managed, and you realise that really, it's about connecting to the soul of that person, isn't it? About allowing them to express who they are and the things that they're good at. And it takes time. They do, in learning languages and so on. It's so powerful. And what about in your some of the tensions that you
we thought of language exposure outside the classroom context. This is a challenge for us actually, because students usually use the language with the teacher more than they do outside the classroom context.
Which language do you mean?
We're talking about, let's say, standard Arabic, English or French.
Yes.
in their houses, they usually use the Arabic language with their parents. So we have we don't feel that the language L2 English or French is enriched outside the classroom context. Now we thought of resources, because sometimes finding resources in English, not sometimes, all the time, is much easier than finding resources in Arabic or French, and this is really frustrating for students and teachers. Okay, because they have to work on the content and try to find age-appropriate resources, let's say in Arabic, whereas it's really easier in English or in English mainly. Okay. We also thought of time allocation, because we were talking about the timetables, right? Now, when we have we're always teachers always need more sessions with the students so they can use the language. Yes. When it comes to Arabic, we have the standard Arabic and the colloquial Arabic. So we also find this a little bit challenging. Because it's easier for students to use the colloquial Arabic, and they need to learn the standard Arabic by the end of the primary years program, grade 5. Plus the recruitment, finding the teachers who are really qualified to teach whether the mother tongue or the other languages.
Did you, as a group, when you discussed that, did you have in your school? Did you have any solutions to offer for some of those tensions? Or are they similar tensions in your school?
Yes.
For example, recruitment, we look everywhere.
Yes.
We talk to every person we meet until we find the right people. So everybody works, not just the HR department. We all help the HR locate, the best candidates.
Teachers.
We do the same thing.
Time allocation, for example, in my school, I'm given just 1 hour of English in the day. But we try to enrich the home learning experiences. So we try to use some digital platforms that would help students listen to proper English and communicate in one way or another. So we say, we try to think of good quality homework, assignments that will enrich their language experiences rather than just be something that they need to do just for the sake of having homework. So we try to focus a lot on reading and on writing. That's the digital platform, and as much as possible we try.
We do the same thing. We concentrate on writing, reading, extending reading programs. Also the library of the school, library of the section. I have my own library with three languages resources: Arabic, English, and French. Okay. For grade 1, 2, and 3, they have their own library, and they can use all the resources in it.
So
we are also working on a policy for language, a language homework policy. Before I came here, we were working with teachers on brainstorming ideas on what kind of homework we can involve students in, so we make sure the language is developed, whether the parents know it or not. Like watching videos and reflecting on them, listening to songs or whatever and reflecting on them, thinking of all the language strands, not only reading and writing. We also need to work on listening, speaking, viewing, presenting at the same time. Plus, I think a challenge is balancing the role of language in the school, about the language, through the language, learning language. It's really also challenging because sometimes we allocate more time for learning about the language because we have national, not in elementary, but later on the students will go to the official exams and they need to accumulate things from preschool to elementary and so on.
Sort of and grammar and that kind of thing.
Exactly. They need to know the rules. And at the same time, we believe that language is a tool. So balancing these is really challenging.
But you do know that, if this thing about language and home and the messages we're sending to parents about language when we give language homework, and we have to be very careful too, because we also have to value the home language and the relationship within families that uses that language. So this is always, I find, a very tricky area. I mean, the thing that I think is kind of reassuring to us is that we know that language development in one language will have implications for development in the other languages. So as languages improve in one language, we know there is a strong impact on the other language. So language development overall, this is one of the nice things about translanguaging, is we know that language development overall will positively impact other languages.
That's part of the reason why we decided to do our program of inquiry in Arabic.
Yes.
Because we thought that if they have a strong base in Arabic language, which is their mother tongue, that it will definitely help and impact the other languages they're learning.
Yes.
That's why when our students transition in MYP to all English, I mean,
Yes.
we've been asked this question so many times, like, how come your students do so well in MYP, although all of a sudden it switches to English?
Yes.
So,
And you think it's because they have strong language?
I do believe so. Yes, I do believe so.
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of one of the things that tends to happen in international schools, and I'm not sure if it happens so much in your schools in this region, is when students come into school and they have to switch languages, and there's a period of several years when they're not accessing the content and they're not cognitively developing because they're developing the language. So there's this gap. And then as their language catches up, they've still got all this loss of learning to catch up on as well, which is why it's so important to maintain learning in home languages where they're confident. So your Russian child, for example, by learning content through her home language, is not losing out on the cognitive development. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Did you have anything to add to our discussion over there? Yeah.
Our main concern, something that we were discussing, is relation to teaching writing.
Yes.
So we were discussing the reading writing connection theory and how much is enough to be given to the student before they start writing, and how much is too much to be given to the student before the students start writing, and how to go about that on training teachers on this, and kind of in our setting trying to change their mindsets about the idea of creative writing and how to develop these writers rather than like having them repeat things that are already said or mentioned before in the class.
Yeah, so developing those reading and writing skills, so really how old and how much and when to do things, yeah. I'm going to ask our team over here who've probably got some thoughts on that. How do you resolve this issue in your schools? Yeah, how do you deal with literacy in the different languages and so on? What guidance do you use? Yeah, how do you decide what they should be learning when and how?
This is the mapping. I mean, the scope and sequence documents, mapping like per grade level, and prioritizing. Like in preschool, you need to work on the phonemic awareness because this helps a lot in the coming stages. If the students or the children are able to understand very well the sound, the blending, the segmenting, how to sound first, and then it comes to like reading. I mean, this impacts reading and writing later on.
This is not exactly my question, because like when you're not a PYP school, this is all set in the curriculum that you adopt. So suppose you're adopting the Common Core, let's say the American program, everything is set. So you don't think about the curriculum because this is what has to be given. You rather think about the strategies and what the teacher gives and how much the teacher gives. So this is our concern.
Yes. So it's how you develop the
You're going to be
You focus more on the strategies rather than what to give. So you were saying, you were asking about the tensions and the obstacles. So maybe our tensions and obstacles are a bit different because we're following a different approach and a different curriculum. So what we care about most is the teacher and the strategy that the teacher is using in the classroom in order to reach the objective that is already set by the standards and the curriculum.
Yeah, but I meant there are outcomes, there are learning outcomes, whether it's a curriculum or the PYP curriculum. Yeah. We are curriculum developers, but there are things that each student needs to know by like a grade level, right? Now we think of conceptual understandings. The content is not that much, it is important, but what guides us are the conceptual understandings. Okay?
Yeah, because it's new for you. So
Yeah,
we're so used to our PYP
Yeah.
language.
Yes,
that-
exactly.
So you're beginning this journey, and so you guys have been obviously been through this already, and you grappled with all the difficulties of developing a language curriculum that meets your needs. Yeah. So I'm wondering if maybe could you share how you went about setting up your language curriculum? Because we have a scope and sequence
Yes.
in PYP, but not all schools use that. I mean, do you also have?
We use the
national
IB scope and
curriculum?
sequence.
You use the IB scope and sequence.
And we don't use any national, we don't have any commitments that was like using national curriculum.
So there is a scope.
Yes, there is. But it's not something you can just
it's
take and use
different.
straight away. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
kind of go through a process with
Yeah.
it. Would you like to share what you do in your
Okay,
school?
before PYP, we used to follow the British National Curriculum standards, and we had our textbooks and everything was laid out, you know, from K to 5.
So when
From-
you're 5 years and 6 months, you do this.
Yeah, and it was laid out like lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, and life was so easy.
Much
When we-
easier than
Much
now.
easier, but
Yeah.
not so easy.
Now, when the school first adopted PYP and we started learning more about it, even in the beginning, they thought of language as something like a standalone thing.
Yes.
As we went deeper into the program, we realized that no, English, the way we perceive English and the way we want to teach it, we're really aiming at a first language level, although it's a second language to the students. But since we know that they're going to be MYP and DP, we couldn't afford keeping the language at a lower standard. So we decided that we must be integrating in the program of inquiry.
Yes.
So when this happened, I tried my best to keep a structure pulled together, but at the same time be flexible.
Yes.
So when it comes to phonics, teaching them how to read, teaching them the rules of the language, I maintained that part, but I was able to play with things when it came to what they're reading and what they're writing. So I tried to put that into the program in order, I used the program to support me in that. So when we're reading because we're inquiring into something and we want to learn more about it.
Yeah.
And when we're writing, then there's a purpose why we're learning this kind of writing and how it's going to help us, achieve our goals at the end. That's it.
That must have been a huge job.
Yes, because
did you
also
do-
finding
Oh,
the
yes.
resources, the
Yeah.
stories, the fiction, the non-fiction that supports the unit.
Yeah.
This was actually my favorite part because
Yes.
going into children's literature and trying to find the suitable texts to be pulled in that unit, that was really, all the teachers helped in finding
I was going to say,
stories
who's involved in this
yes,
whole
yes,
process?
all of us
Everyone.
as a department. Yes.
And once you set
Collaboratively.
that program, what do you do to revise it, and how often do you revise it, and who is involved in the revision? Do the students have a role to play here?
To revise the program?
Yeah, whether this is something
Not
that they
really, but-
like to be given.
Our program is the program of inquiry. So when it comes to that, yes. But when it comes to the components of English and what we're doing, it's the English team. We meet constantly. So we're looking at our scope and sequence and trying to see, are we getting the result that we want by the end of grade 5? So we're trying to do a backward design kind of thing. We start from what they're expecting in MYP and we try to scaffold to get there.
But it's a good question, though, isn't it? How do we? But goes back to what we were talking about yesterday in the updates. You might have heard this term agency we were
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah. So the question is, and it's a good question about how we involve students in that process. And language learning, of course, students are very conscious of what they can and can't do with language. They're very aware of it, aren't they? And how we bring those on board and have them involved in setting some of those goals.
Actually, when we do reading, reading specific stories, we always have them reflecting. Did you like the story? Why did you like it? Why didn't you like it?
Do you change it?
Yeah, and we send a
Students'
letter
voice.
home. We send an English letter home asking parents some questions after they review the portfolio with their kids. So we try to get also feedback, what was the most successful experience, what ideas they can share, exactly how they've seen their children developing. So we really get immediate feedback from our students. And if we feel like a novel failed, and did not really, of course, we change it to something more interesting to them.
I have just one more question I'd like to ask you to think about is about how we record language development in the different languages that the students work with. I'm curious about that question. So can I ask you, first of all, just we're going to have to close in a few minutes because I think someone else might need the room. So can I ask you, how do you record language development in the different languages? Is it separately together? Does the English teacher record the English and the French teacher the French, or do you get an opportunity to look at the big picture with those students as to how they're developing?
For us, they record individually, but there's a meeting where you discuss each student's performance.
Yes.
So any teacher, yes, the documentation. Any teacher who teaches that child sits at a round table and you hear about all the aspects of development for that child.
French, but weaker in English.
Right.
So
She might be like
you
really
hear
good
about her in art,
with
in
her
drama, in all the subjects to get to know like the whole child more, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great, yeah. So there's some really interesting things been going on in your schools, and I'm wondering whether you
Documentation
should
also.
be taking the multilingualism presentation actually, because that's great. I mean, it was wonderful to hear your
Yeah.
experiences.
We
and so on.
document also. There's
Yeah.
like a document that moves year after year.
Yeah.
So
In our school, I don't know other school, but we've got 2 teachers,
Yeah.
support teachers that, especially when it comes to language.
co-teaching,
Someone's
yes.
lacking and the student is falling behind for whatever reason,
Yeah.
we try it.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that when the PYP enhancements come out in October, there's a language section in there. It gives some information about translanguaging, and it gives information about creating your multilingual school environment. And I think you'll find that you're a long way down that path. Yeah, you're
Great.
beginning that path, and so hopefully it'll have information for you. But I hope that today you've had an opportunity to reflect a little bit on the strengths of your programs, but perhaps also had some thoughts about where to next and how you can take your program on to the next steps. And I'm going to have to stop because it's 2:00 and somebody's looking at me over there. So I'm going to have to stop.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being very